If more of you supported the show, I'd be less sick of podcasts.
Blah, blah, blah. Sending out good vibes. Blah, blah, good vibes. Blah, good vibes. Good vibes. Good vibes. 108 breaths of deep gratitude and prayers for guidance and protection. And put on a didgeridoo and shamanic drumming track. Shivers or vibrations and stuff like that.
America. Okay, guys, welcome back to the Grimerica Show. Coming back at you fresh off the road from another successful event. I guess we could call it successful. Everyone seemed to have a good time. We got 4 new 5-star reviews. I had 3 people tell me it was that little old lady with the long hair.
Yep.
She was one of the people who told me it was the best trip she's ever gone on in her life.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, she told me at the beginning that, or I guess halfway through, she's like, oh yeah, because she started talking to people, and you can talk to everybody about anything, right? About all kinds of stuff. So these people that have had all these sort of esoteric interests their whole life, they, of course, it's hard to talk to people about this stuff, right? But you go on a trip like that, and Randall Carlson attracts these people that are interested in all these different topics. So she was like, oh yeah, I could talk openly to all these people, and they were super interested and open-minded. So yeah, it was great.
It was something else. It really was one for the books. Of course, we're talking about the Columbia Gorge tour we did with Randall Carlson. We will have some more stuff coming up. But for now, if you guys do want to come on one of these events with us and have a blast, we got a big one coming up in 6 weeks in Invermere in Canada, where you can come up on the mountain with us, hang out with Brandon Powell, do some Wim Hof stuff, play in the snow, eat some elk, all that fantastic stuff. I mean, it's a fun one. We get the Canadian crowd. Looks like we'll have a lot more mixing of the U.S. and the Canadian crowd this year, and some of my personal friends coming in, because we had some worlds collide at the wedding, of course. And now, like, some of my buddy Miles met some of the Cackers, and they partied together. Now they want to hang out together. That's just nice to see.
Yeah.
It took like 12 years for the worlds to somewhat collide.
Well, that's good that you can even combine your worlds. I mean, I went through a point in time. We talk about it a little bit in this episode, actually, where my worlds were, I had to separate my worlds and make sure they didn't collide. It was a disaster. And then I watched The Secret, which was part of my journey to sobriety, which James Arthur Ray and his wife, well, he was in the movie. I mean, it was really interesting. And he's having Bersabeh on the show with us here today. And they, she found him, and after he came out of jail, I guess, $20 million in debt, homeless. She was born in 81 in Iran. She went through all that with Iran, and then she met him, and he was trying to get his life back because he got like sort of taken down for this I mean, almost like a lawfare thing, really, like the sweat lodge incidents, the accidents that happened. So, I mean, he was working with 1 million people over the world, like best-selling author. That one book there, Harmonic Wealth, super bestseller. And then, he had that accident, which we talk about in the show, which is great. I didn't know if he wanted to talk about that or not, but yeah, we went into all this stuff. And they kind of just, they took that opportunity, especially because it was alternative health, right? Because I remember that happening in the show when we were like back in 2013. I remember all this. And I remember saying to you, like, man, they're using this. Like, I mean, they wanted to make it like sweat lodges aren't safe and all this alternative health stuff. I mean, they really sort of used him as a villain to disparage all this, alternative healing and health. But he made it through. And I mean, they're doing great now. They made it through, and they're pushing forward. It's a great chat with them both. Really awesome. Like about modern alchemy, like spiritual stuff. Like I was quite surprised at how much of the stuff that they are talking about resonates with us, as podcasters that have been doing this for like 11 years, right? Even like sort of freedom wise, politically, mandate wise, like it's just so nice to hear people that have been through like fame, massive fame, worldwide fame, and they're standing up and pushing back against all this stuff.
Absolutely. Was it 2013?
Well, that's when we started the podcast.
When would we have seen that stuff he was on?
Well,
when did that come out?
Well, The Secret came out in, I don't know. I saw it in 2008 myself.
Okay, so
that, but I don't know if that's when, Harmonic Wealth was voted as one of the top celebrity reads by People magazine in 2008.
2006. Came out in 2006.
Yeah.
So there you have it.
But I'm not sure. I can't remember. He told us in the episode, but I can't remember when he actually, like, when that happened with the sweat lodges. I feel like it was it 2009 maybe? And then he just like got through the courts and had to go to jail in 20, or maybe got out in 2014, I think, or something. What we talk about it in the show. I don't want to get it all wrong here in the intro.
No, there's no point in putting words in his mouth. Like you say, we'll get into it in the show. It's a good show. If you guys want to skip ahead, of course, there is always a timestamp to our lazy ramblings. You guys can check that out. Just go to the show notes. You click it, bam, it'll take you right over there. So, did it not?
Well, how was your traveling across borders? I mean, we should probably. I think last time we forgot to talk about it, but I mean, people might be interested at your, because we were having some troubles across the borders there at one point. Well, so I think it's good now, right?
It's been a non-event.
So they're just letting you through, no problem.
No problem. Just I zipped right through. They asked a few questions. What'd you be up to? What have you been up to? What'd you do? Blah blah blah. But all in all, it was a breeze both ways.
That's good.
No problems. You?
Well, yeah, except I came back through Saskatchewan. So I drove all the way through Montana to come back through Saskatchewan because I'm sick of the other drive, the Canadian drive. Not the one through the mountains, but sick of the drive from Calgary to Saskatoon. Actually, I would have ended up going a different route even still, which I kind of didn't realize until the end because I wouldn't have gone all the way up to Calgary. Obviously, I would have cut east past Lethbridge and all that, Medicine Hat, gone that way. But anyways,
Calgary. I thought
what?
I thought you went through past Calgary.
No, I wouldn't have to go through Calgary because I was coming up like through the south, right? So I decided to go through Montana as far as I could without wasting too much time. But so I get to this tiny little border crossing in Saskatchewan, like really like tiny, like the BC one kind of, and I'm pulling up, and the guy puts a pylon. Like I see the guy put a pylon in front of me. I'm like, what is that? So I thought, was I speeding? Because I was, how you're supposed to go like 15K or whatever, like up to the thing, and it's almost impossible to go that slow. So I'm going like 30 or whatever, and I'm thinking, does this guy think I'm going to speed through it or something? Like he's like, you got your IDs? He yells to me from the side because he's out of the gate house. I'm like, yeah, and I think did I hand him? I just showed him my passport maybe, and he says, so you're going to stop or something. Or he was trying to make sure I was going to stop. So that was a bit awkward right away. So I pull up and like, what the fuck is going on here? Right. And the guy was he was asking me a bunch of questions and over, he was asking me, he was repeating. I think it was a guy in training and he was repeating the same old questions. So I really do think he was just trying to do the thorough thing. Like he says, well, you mentioned who's we? And I said, I had friends up at a wedding and I drove them with them across the border. Now I'm coming back here. And the reason why I'm coming back this way is because I'm sick of the drive up north. So I came back through Montana and they just let me in. But I had to what's your license plate number? I'm like, I don't know my license plate number off the top of my head. It's my girlfriend's car kind of thing,
Oh boy, did that cause
No, it was okay because it was pink, right? It's a pink car. So he was like, I wondered. And I said, yeah,
The pink car probably helps the situation.
Well, I don't know. I think at first they thought maybe I was like
A gay, like, coke dealer?
no. Or maybe just in a stolen car. Like I grabbed the pink, as if I would steal a pink Jeep to cross the border. I don't know. It's weird. Anyways, then it was fine. He let me through, but I think I got stuck in the middle of a training session.
Oh yeah, they were training on you.
I think so. Yeah. Just the pylon threw me off, right? I'm like, why are they making sure that I don't pull? Yeah, I don't know. It's very strange. And I've got kind of PTSD from traveling across borders with you. I mean, I just don't even like to do it anymore, really. It's just like, oh.
Because of me?
No, not because of you, just because of, COVID and everything we went through. Like, I used to love traveling. I had itchy feet. I'd love to be traveling. Now I don't know. It's not the same.
Well, it's great. It just sucks. Dealing with the bozos at the border. There's just, I don't know. Were they better in your day? Were they not bozos? Were they ever friendly? I mean,
No.
even like Danny tells me stories. He's like, ever say, they've always been horrible. The Canadian side has always been horrible. The U.S. side, you get some nice guys. The Canadian guys, they just,
But I think it helped when you were kind of like sort of talking some sense into me. Like they don't care about all this other stuff. They're just there for the border, right? Like they're not in any other kind of law enforcement type jurisdiction, really, right? I mean, they're just border guards. Because I think I grew up thinking that they had the authority to do whatever the fuck they wanted, kind of thing,
Yeah, well, they kind of do, probably. Don't they?
I don't know. You told me the opposite of that. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Well, you should be careful what I say. But they can only get you for like border related stuff.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at.
Anyway.
So, anyways, congratulations on your marriage and all that too.
Thanks.
That was interesting. You are now a married man again.
Now married man. I'm a married man. I mean, what should we start with? Should we start with? I mean, we had some lords at the wedding. Why don't we start by? Should we play the video?
Sure.
Start with that. Let's see if it'll work.
You might not even be able to hear it.
Might not even work. It's like how could it be so useless? You know what? Why don't you read the emails first?
Okay, so we're gonna go over some emails here, some donation emails and some feedback emails, kind of. The first one here is from. Let me see if I should read his name. It's from Paul. I'll just say that and this is about our episode with the Prince of Pot, Mark Emery. He says, I was surprised to hear the Yanks wanting to extradite the Prince of Pot. The sentence in particular, 28 to 45 years for trafficking seeds. I think I applied for one of his old jobs at Murdoch University, Western Australia, in the vet department, shooting up lab animals with experimental human drugs. I'm currently in court, so cannot say much, but 5 charges could get me a maximum of 115 years, $420,000. Is that a coincidence?
That's a pretty funny coincidence. If it is, probably not as funny to him.
Albeit different charges, but trafficking still. I have an autoimmune disorder and only did what I did for medicinal purposes. But I'm being crucified in the courts, hence the heavy maximum penalties. I grew some pot, opium, and attempted to cook up some DMT. Now I'm fucked. My home has been frozen and just got rejected by the DPP for being charged as a bucket chemist under the Medicines and Poisons Act. Wow. A bucket chemist. They want me charged under the Misuse of Drugs Act, which is a maximum of 115 years for 69 cannabis plants, some THC oil, and 2 leftover jugs, both failures of a DMT cook.
Wait, where is this?
I think it's in Australia. They fixed it and completed the cook, charging me with 0.7 grams of DMT crystal. What? This has got to be a spoof. Am I so bad? One of my doctors has stated that I was totally incapacitated and I've only been stable this last 2 years. Bah. Don't want to be a whinger or a whiner. Regards, Paul. Wow. Well, thanks for the story, Paul.
Sorry, Paul. Sorry about your luck.
Yeah.
Could be
And
worse.
this one's from a new donation, so a new noble, right?
New Noble.
Hi, Graham and Darren. I'm going to confess straight up that I have not listened to you two for a particularly long time, but I'm in. So many synchros, it's got to the point where I couldn't not write. Enough with the double negatives. I had heard you two are of a decent sort via the Snake Bros. I've been slithering with those guys for a good few years now, since COVID, I think, and am an admin on the Discord. I've met an incredible bunch of people and made some lifelong friends, all with a passion to uncover the unknown, have our minds blown most days, and we all have an unquenchable thirst for more rabbit holes. Did you know they are all connected? So let the synchros roll. I was born in Toronto but moved to Australia when I was a kid. I'm a Gen X ADHDer with a whole shitbag full of life experience. Does this mean you plug in better to the ether? Does this make you more receptive or maybe just more ready? I'm not sure why this is so necessary, but anywho, I've experienced so many wild and unexplainable things in my life. I too am left sitting back with my medicinal weed in a state of what the actual fuck is going on here. I've been on a mystical spiritual quest for gnosis my entire adult life. I contemplate the light, the darkness, the balance between, and most of all, I contemplate our ability to enact free will. Is this a simulation, a cleverly crafted game set up by the demon spirits on the dark side of the moon? I say this tongue-in-cheek, but there is a part of me that wonders. A lot. I have memories from lives before now. So do my kids. Specific, tangible snippets of experiences that echo through this iteration of us. I feel the energy of the earth, ley lines. I feel the trees, the animals, and the plants. I'm a complete freaking weirdo. Last year, we lost our home in a bushfire. On the summer solstice, everything gone in 8.5 minutes. I can tell you, if you want to be brought to your spiritual knees, this is a really good way to go about it. Not recommended. Recalibration required on just about everything. If you thought an LSD trip was a good for destruction of ego, try having everything you had ever worked for, saved for, treasured, ripped away. This is next level, and clearly I wasn't listening the first few times to whatever it is I need to listen to. Right now I'm feeling a pull towards Christianity. I have, for the first time in my life, begun going to a local church. I figure it's my contemplation time, my worship time, my connection with my community time, and a whole positive egregore of goodness. I've never felt the pull towards Christ before. In fact, quite the opposite. So I find this place I am in to be strange and a little disconcerting. And where does the sacred feminine fit with all this? I decided not long ago to start plotting my way through the Bible. I'm all about encoded ancient wisdom crafted into words that may or may not reflect the original intent. I figure we should know our oral traditions that have clearly survived from times before the Anunnaki. I believe there is magic within this book. It has been messed with by the ego of the churches and twisted to fit the patriarchal control mechanism. Listening to you guys, the role of guests you have had on lately, and the conversations you have had about whether or not you are ready to step into Christ. I totally get it. I'm there with you. I just don't know if I'm ready to get baptized, cleaned of my previous sins. Tempting. But when it comes to the blood covenant of ingesting the body and blood of Christ, this is where I stumble. I just cannot wrap my head around a God that wants us to consume and alter our DNA via ingesting the blood of another supernatural being. Sorry, but is this weird or is it just me? So I'm feeling the call to nature. I'm setting up a homestead-like garden and sanctuary on what was our burnt and cleansed land. The call to get my hands dirty and get planting food crops is so strong. Get back to basics, let's face it. The less we as individuals rely on the system of consumption, the better. I honor the earth daily. I marvel at the stars in the sky and the birds singing in the trees. There is joy and abundance all around us. You just need to open your eyes and receive what's already there. You don't need much. I hope to make it to one of your CAC events, so it's Contact at the Cabin, or another one of your tours. It's on my bucket list. Best to you guys and your families. Sending love from the flip side, Georgia. And she signed up for a monthly. Thank you.
Thank you, Georgia. Let me go. I mean, as long as we do that, support the show, please. GrowAmerica.ca/support. Georgia? Is that I wonder if that's the name it's under.
Oh, it might not be. I'll talk to you about it later.
Because we did. Okay.
Yeah. It's a $5.55. $5.55 a month.
$5.55. Well, thank you very much, Georgia. And as long as we're talking about that, we would like you to support the show, please. GrowAmerica.ca/support. It comes off as a free show because it's all there for free, but it's actually not. Strange enough, it is actually a value for value show. So we put it all out there for free in the hopes that you guys will like it. Some of it, find value in some of it. It'll help you get to work, maybe help you get through your workout, whatever you're doing, wherever you're listening. If you're liking it, it'll help. We get some value from it. You'll decide, hey, this is worth the price of a coffee or a book or a movie, whatever you think. And head over to GrowAmerica.ca/support, and you send that back to us, whether it's a one-time donation, whether it is a recurring monthly like Georgia did, the $5.55 a month. So the ones that really sustain us, help us keep going. This comes in every month. Kind of, if that keeps growing, we keep going. Instead of it stagnating, which it has been doing for a while. Lately, we have been getting some one-time donations, though, so that has been helping to pick up the past. Of course, we will read your note as well. We will always read your note if you make us a donation, like Graham just read George's email. So support the show, GrowAmerica.ca/support. And we'll make you a noble or a lord or a lady. We do have some nobles to make a little bit later. Of course, it is like the No Agenda guys say, time, talent, or treasure. We had a lot of time and talent helping out as of late, and we have some treasure, like from Georgia, and we got some more treasure to go through here now. From we got $75 from someone who said not to mention him. So thank you, person who can't be mentioned. You know who you are. You put very first thing. No shout out. So that's how you have to do it if you don't want to get doxxed on Grow America. From Benjamin Bateman, 1234, 1234. Thank you very much. From friend of the show, Adam Burkhart, 111.11. Thank you, Adam. That's a big one. From Lord, from one of our lords, I forget his title, Lord of the Pies, Lord of the we should start writing these down, shouldn't we? We should know these.
Yeah, we should. I should. Lord of the Pies.
Lord of the Pies, Anthony Hubbard. No longer a fag.
That makes sense. That makes sense too.
He sent 55 and said happy wedding. And then we got a new monthly, Matt Gannon, coming in at $11.11 a month. So thank you, Matt Gannon. That's huge. And Cameron Gordon, new patron, $8 a month. So thank you, gentlemen. We should also mention that we got some cash from Timmy and a new drone. Of course, Timmy Bush. We're talking about here is a monthly supporter and has also given us a couple of $150. We gave us one $150 and one $100 one, I think, and then there's this whole drone debacle, which I pulled out of the box. It's a beautiful drone. It's got the screen like built into the remote. Like you don't have to hook up to your phone like the old one I have. You have to hook it up to your phone. And this one you don't have to. So, do you want a drone?
I don't know. I just haven't really thought about it. It's kind of putting me on the spot.
One.
I mean, I
have two now, so you should have one.
I should, yeah.
So next time you're here, I'll give you one.
Okay.
Drone Wars.
Along with some more wild game meat.
Some wild game meat. We got all sorts of stuff here for you. I mean, we missed out on the wild game meat. I couldn't find your shirt, but anyway, he gave us he also gave us $500 when we were down there in Hood River. So that does make Timmy a lord. So he has to see Timmy will have to send us in what you want your title to be. You're the Lord of Georgia under the protectorate of the ward of Mike. Mike's the ward of the USA, of course, liberal Mike. But you are now the Lord of Georgia. So thank you, Lord of Georgia. Tell us what you want your title to be, and we'll take it from there.
That a bit of a synchro right there with Georgia emailing in from, I think, Australia.
I didn't even pick that up, but yeah,
and Tim's the Lord of Georgia. So he's not the Lord of her. He's the Lord of Georgia, the state, right?
That's right. Absolutely. And then, of course, we've got some time and talent ones to give out. We'll start with, I mean, this one probably catch some people off guard. They might not expect, but we'll start with Nicky the dude who's been driving the van around for us at these events for 3 events now, is it? 2 for sure. I think maybe 3. He's been doing that for us. He was up here for the wedding, of course, and chipped in a bunch of stuff. I mean, we'll talk about it a little bit more after when we're done about how crazy these guys got when they showed up here. But Nicky, the dude, was here helping out, really came through. And like I say, he's been driving for us for several events now, which is a huge help. Saves us a bunch of money. So big thanks to Nicky, the dude, Lord Nicky, the dude. I'm assuming you'll be Lord Nicky, the dude, Lord of Tennessee, I guess. But if you want something different, you send us your title, send that over, email it to us so we can get you into the book properly. Of course, on that same vein, we've got we're gonna have Lord Ian Thorine, who's also been driving for us for several events. Huge fan of the show and great guy. So Lord Ian, thanks for the driving, your time, and your talent. Of course, you would be the Lord of, I guess, Washington. Do we have another Washington? That might be a problem. Well, you could be the Lord of the Bellingham region at least. And on down the list, we have Oliver Crane, who came here and snaked my sink for me and built a sun porch down in my basement. The guy just couldn't stop working. It's weird. By the time I got home from work the first day, he had already had the sink pulled apart. He's got the weird thing where he just can't stop working. And of course, Oliver's been cooking for us, basically at cost for several events now. He's always a hit, always comes through, always brings a bunch of weed. So thank you, Oliver. Send in your thing. Let us know. I guess you'd be the Lord of
the karaoke. I mean, he's pretty good at the karaoke too.
Pretty good at stand-up too, remember?
That was really funny, the stand-up.
So, Lord of New Mexico, Oliver, send us in your title. That'll bring us on down the list to Dan. I mean, Dan came down here. Dan showed up here, fixed my motorbike, fixed my kid's little quad, and took the chainsaw. Remember the thing those guys built? Dan and Cadence and Michelle. I mean, they just like went onto my property with the chainsaw and whipped up an entire
altar kind of, or like a what's the word I'm looking for? The archway. It's like a wedding arch.
You can get married under. I mean, we had nothing. We had a little simple thing in mind that was going to be like basically 3 pieces of wood, and between my sister and my niece and Oliver and Dan with the chainsaw. Dan was out there in the pouring rain for like 6 hours straight, just cutting up wood, and they whipped up this amazing thing. I mean, he carved Grimes into it with the chainsaw, and then Oliver burned it all with a torch, and they burned it with a torch. I think Dan was out there burning too. So, I mean, the guys worked all day and then all the morning the next day to get this crazy thing set up. I mean, it really is. There's pictures of it on the social media, I think, right?
Yeah,
it really is. I mean, it turned out tremendously. So I got to say thank you to Lord Dan of Missouri, I think. Lord of Missouri would send us in your title there. And the last one I almost forgot was Cody. Lord Cody. who helped out with the events. And also, I mean, he hooked me up with a sweet pair of binoculars. Didn't he give you like some swords or something? I thought I seen something sticking out of your bag.
Yeah.
So am I forgetting anyone? I think that's everyone. The other thing Dan did is went out and bought like 21 bales of straw for me and like put them. I mean, those guys really made the wedding come together. It's hard to picture what it would have been like without the CAC family just coming in and swooping through. So I really can't thank you guys enough for making the special day extra special. I mean, it was fun. For people who don't know, of course, Graham was the officiant, the guy. Graham was the guy. So I do have the video
wedding
here.
Commissioner. I was the commissioner because we got to give a shout out to. Oh, I guess I'll wait till the video's over. The beautiful bride, Shauna, as well.
My wife. Yeah. Thank you to Shauna. She's the lady now. I guess we'll get to that. We'll get to that. So let me see if this works. I think I should be able to share this screen. Did that work?
It seems to be working, yeah.
So if I do that, hit
and
play.
we should shout out Lauren Casey too, the
karaoke queen.
Karaoke queen.
They're the best at getting the party started.
They're inspiring, they make me want to karaoke more.
Did you do it?
No, I mean I did Stairway to Heaven a couple times with her, but I gotta get over my fear and just jump right into it. But usually by the time it comes on, I'm exhausted. Like at the contact of the cabin, I was just like ready to go to bed, and then they started up. I'm like, oh shit!
And they were shooting the chickens up. Yeah, and that's pretty clever. Okay, let's see if this is even gonna work. Can you hear it?
Yeah, I can barely hear it. Yeah.
Let's see. I'm trying to see if I can make this smaller. That might get us in trouble on YouTube. So let's see. All right. So let's skip ahead a little bit. This should be where you start talking. I'll probably skip the vows too. You think we should have that in there?
No, I mean, well, I don't know. I mean, those are pretty amazing.
We are gathered today.
Can you hear it okay?
To celebrate the union of Darren and Shauna in marriage. We're off to a good start. This is the first time I've experienced Darren being early for anything. Today is a day of joy, not only for Darren and Shauna, but for all of us as we stand together to support and share in their love. Marriage is a journey, a partnership, and a commitment to support each other through all of life's moments. This beautiful, authentic marriage is not a surprise to me. In a synchronistic way, I believe Darren knew deep down this would happen before they had even met in person. We could tell she was super cool. She listened to our podcast a bit and was resonating with Darren's demeanor already. I remember once telling my girlfriend Maria and showing her Shauna and saying, "This will be Darren's lady." And sure enough, they met, sparks flew, and we're all here on this special day. Marriage is not just a bond of love, but also a friendship and partnership. It's about growing together, learning from each other, and building a future. Darren, Shauna, please join hands and face each other like you haven't let them go yet already. And make your promises to one another. You can go first, Shauna.
Okay. I might not be able to see it now. Okay. I wrote these vows during our eclipse trip in Texas. Because, you posted online if you aren't currently living. Sorry. One of the prayers used to pray, reflect on that today. You are what I prayed for. Someone who loves me, respects me, and makes me feel safe.
There's a bee.
You inspire me without ever making me feel that I'm not already enough. You always keep your word and you put your family first. And I realized during that trip, I don't pray for much of anything anymore. I just more often than not find myself thanking God for you in this life that we have together. I feel so lucky that you chose me, and I'm so proud to call you my husband. There's nothing I can say that will ever fully express how much I love you and our girls. So I'll just keep telling you I love you 50 times a day, like I always do. And I promise to always have your back and love you with everything I have forever.
Thank you.
Shauna, from the moment you can,
This is the part where Darren's getting a little teary and he's got everybody going.
everything changed. You've been such an incredible support, not only to me, but to Madison and Cassandra. Stepping into the role of an amazing stepmother with so much grace and love. You took a huge gamble, leaving behind a life you had built to be with me. And I want you to know that I don't take that lightly. I promise to do everything I can to make sure that that bet keeps paying off, that you never doubt the life we're building together. With you by my side, I finally feel like I found the missing piece to true happiness and success. Our family feels complete now, and it's all because of you. Shawnee, you're my partner, my love, my everything. I vow to always protect you, provide for you, and love you. Be by your side in sickness and in health. Together we found something so rare, and I promise to cherish it for the rest of the time. I also want to take a moment to welcome Lola into our family, and to Madison and Cassandra. Thank you. You're welcoming Shauna and Lola with open arms. Love you.
Amazing vows. So the rings you are about to exchange are a symbol of the unbroken circle of love. May these rings remind you always of the vows you've made today and of the love you share. Shauna, please place the ring on Darren's finger and repeat after me. With this ring, I give you my love, my trust, and my heart for today and always. Darren, please place this ring on Shauna's finger and repeat after me. With this ring, I give you my love, my trust, and my heart for today and always. By the magical power vested in me, I now pronounce you King and Queen of Grimerica. Husband and wife. This is the bride, Darren. May the love you've shared today continue to grow and inspire those around you. I wish you both a lifetime of honesty, adventure, and happiness. And it's my honor to present to you for the first time as a married couple, Darren and Shauna Grimes.
Nice.
There you have it.
That was good. Yeah, that was good. Interesting watching it again, or seeing it for the first time afterwards.
Yeah, how many podcasts play the wedding video, you know?
Yeah, that's good.
So anyway, support the show. America.ca/support. And help pay for the wedding. You know, it wasn't cheap. Even the cheap one wasn't cheap, you know.
Exactly.
Anyway, what else you got?
I don't know. I mean, I think that's I think that's about it. We've talked about our trips and all the new supporters and all the new lords.
I mean, I can't help but mention that my books are back on Amazon
Right.
after
I
a
mean,
year and a half of fighting, of being censored. We've seemed to have found a way to fight back, and we've managed to get the publishing company, Adult Brain, recognized to the level that Amazon let the books back on through our other distributors. So it does seem like a slight win, you know, it really does.
yeah, good timing too with the the tide sort of changing, the pendulum coming back a bit. Maybe this is a good sign of the times here.
Twitter did still tell me to go fuck myself again. I did. I
Did
tried just again today.
Did you really? And what are they giving you anything?
It was within like
answers?
a minute. Within a minute.
I just don't get it. I mean, did you not try to ask them like what happened, like how they
They don't
able
care.
to do that? Like they just
Back in the box. I'm back in the box. Whatever box I was in before, I might even be in a smaller box.
And your entropy won't. I mean, sorry, your AI won't help you. Won't be able to get you out of there. It won't help you this time.
It doesn't seem to matter what the fuck I do. I just
So
can't
weird.
fucking. And now I'm like, well, just can you at least tell me what I did wrong? And fucking
I know
no,
that. No, that's the problem. Is they just said no. Like somebody complained about you, and that was enough for us to just cancel you again. That's so crazy.
techno feudalism.
Techno feudalism.
Elon's a digital lord.
Yeah.
I don't care about
Well,
the
the king of Grimerica just can't break
think
through
that the king of Grimerica would get a little bit of fucking notoriety, but fucking nothing. Anyway, I digress. You don't have no bio, nothing.
Oh no, I already read the
Okay.
yeah.
Enjoy the chat. It's a good one. It's been in the can for a little while with the traveling and the this and the that, but we're back. We're on schedule. No more major trips for a little while. It is hunting season, so gonna have some nice hunting stories coming up. Hopefully, my hand still doesn't work properly, but it is getting a little better every day. So, that's nice. Forgot to shut that off. So yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting. Enjoy the chat with James and Bear.
All right, here we are with James Arthur and Bersabeh. Ray, thanks for joining us. How are you guys doing?
We're doing great. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, this is going to be exciting. I got a couple things to say that sort of happened to me around the 2008 area that sort of fit in with your guys' story. But I mean, I guess just for some context, we should probably just do a quick little bit about yourselves for like the Reader's Digest version of both. Yeah, and then we can start talking about some fun stuff. Do you want to start, James?
Sure, I'll be happy to start. So at one point, I was squeaky clean and really popular. I was in a movie that I'm grateful for, but I'm not totally in alignment with, and never really was, quite frankly, called The Secret, which many people are familiar with. And again, I am grateful for that because it blew my message up around the world, but it left out a lot of key key points of how things really work in the universe. And I think my best information ended up on the cutting room floor, but it catapulted me into a huge arena. And that was, as they say, a blessing and a curse, because I became a target, because I've always been a little bit controversial. And so consequently, I rose to the top. And I don't want to belabor the whole point, but I was involved in a horrible accident in 2009. And um, anybody who was thinking knew it was an accident, but the state of Arizona decided to come after me for a crime. And the media went from loving me and wanting me on Oprah multiple times and Larry King and the Today Show and everywhere else to literally crucifying me just like that. And I became in the crosshairs of the weaponization, or I was put in the crosshairs of the weaponization of the legal system, which is not news today, but this was 2009, 10. And so I was one of the maybe early experiencers of a lot of the things we're seeing in the world today. And long story short, I lost everything. The minute that happened, I lost, not only three friends that I loved and cared about in a horrible accident, but I also lost all the people who loved me and supported me. Supposedly, you learn who your real friends are when you go through the darkness. And most of the people, not no one else in the secret besides the late great Bob Proctor, God rest his soul, even reached out to me and said, "Hey, how are you doing?" and hang in there.
Wow.
And yeah, it was heartbreaking, and so real disillusioning. And I lost, everything that I had acquired and worked over 20 years for. I lost my Inc. 500 company. I lost my dream home. I lost my life savings. I lost my reputation. I quite frankly lost my confidence. And it just blew my mind the way things were going on. And I ended up going through a 4-month trial on this horrible accident that was caused. The medical doctor that we hired from Harvard went through 4,000 pages of medical evidence, and this is how the lawfare works. And this is no surprise to those of us viewing what's going on today, but back then it was really a surprise to me. And he went through 4,000 pages of medical evidence and stated conclusively under oath that the deaths were caused by pesticides. And if you study, even do a cursory search for pesticides, you'll realize they're incredibly toxic. In fact, 20%, according to Dr. Casey Means, 20% of the suicides in today's world are facilitated by people ingesting pesticides. And so he concluded that it was pesticides, and the state's whole case was that it was my fault. And the pesticides were utilized by the property owners, and they perjured themselves under oath, and they were caught in perjury, but of course they weren't prosecuted, and that seems to be standard fare in today's world. And there were 32 counts of prosecutorial misconduct. There was a Brady violation where the state was fined for suppressing evidence in my favor. And the story's long, but it just really shattered my image, my image, not only my self-image, but also my image about who we are in this country,
Right.
and the rights I had been conditioned to believe that I had, and I didn't have. I didn't have. And so, long short, I was acquitted of the main charge, and I still went to prison for 2 years and came out in 2013. And I was $20 million in debt, and I was homeless, and I was alone. I didn't know my lovely wife at that time. And I just had to get my head on and decide where I was going to go for James Arthur Ray 3.0, which obviously presupposes there was a 2.0 and a 1.0, which are other stories. But that's kind of where we started in
Sure.
2013.
Mhm.
She started prior to that, and she can tell you her story. But a lot of what she went through allowed her to see through the fake news, literally, and the propaganda that was being propagated about me, and to see something different. And she believed in me, thank God, and stood by my side. And so here we are, what, 11 years later,
11
I
years,
guess.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
quite the comeback.
well, we're still coming back. You
Yeah.
know, I think we'll be continually coming back. And yet incredibly grateful, incredibly blessed. You know, I've got an amazing wife who I didn't have before, and we have an amazing life. And I'm super grateful to God, because if the state had gotten 30 years that they were trying to pin on me, I wouldn't be here with you guys tonight.
Yeah, exactly. And Bersabeh, I mean, I love how he mentioned that you were conditioned to see through this mirage, this fake news on his thing. And I'm going to tell you about what I remember of that as well. But let's hear, because you sort of had a similar struggle where against the powers that be, or against propaganda from where you were from, right?
Sure, yeah. I was born in Iran, so I was born at a time when Iran and Iraq were at war with each other, and the so-called revolution happened. So, uh, yeah, I mean, there was a lot of extreme violence from bombs being dropped, and I've seen people get killed in front of me. Dad being military, kicking down our door, ripping my dad out of the house, throwing him in prison. Mom was raped by the so-called guards there, and we had to escape the country. We had to pay somebody to smuggle us out of the country, which we made safely.
You should make the point, all in the name of democracy.
Yes, all in the name
I
of
was
the
going to mention,
democracy.
I was going to mention, did you guys know the deeper story about what was happening back then too, or?
Well, okay, so here's how it happened. They sold it when the Shah was there. They sold it to the people that let's have a democracy. Let's have a system where the people can vote for who can be in power. And so let's get the Shah out. And the people bought it. They bid, and there's rumors that the CIA was behind that. And that happened once they got rid of the Shah, and they started seeing people coming in from other countries, where they realized, wait, the new guards or military that are coming in, they're not Iranians, they're from Palestine.
You mean you had illegal immigrants coming in?
Yes, we did. We had illegal immigrants
Imagine
coming in.
that.
So that happened, and the day that the Ayatollah Khomeini came in power, it was the very same day they said, from this day forth, all the women have to cover up. And it was like a shock to the people in the system. It was they couldn't believe it, and they broke out in the streets. They were throwing people in prison. They were killing people. They were raping women. I mean, it was a horrific scene. And there's no place for us to live there. Where I grew up in the Baha'i background, so they give a really hard time to the Baha'is, to the Jewish people, and the Christians. You couldn't own a business. You couldn't go to school to get an education, and women didn't have any rights. And that's why we had to pay someone to smuggle us out of the country at the risk of being caught. And fortunately enough, we made it. So when we came to the States,
Caught and killed.
well, yeah.
Yeah.
It would have been a death sentence. There's no getting caught and them letting you go. So after when I met James, and this is something that, you come here. So the way I'm conditioned is that you don't ever, ever, ever trust the government. And you don't ever trust the news media. You don't trust any of that. They're not for you. They're not for the people. It's a lie.
Completely contrary to how I'd been conditioned growing up in America, obviously.
Yeah. So when I met James, and I met him somewhere where he was speaking for the first time, and I met him in person, and I didn't know anything about the story until I went and looked on Google, and Google's not our friend.
Not our Wikipedia is not our friend either.
It's not good. But what didn't make sense to me was the person that I met and the things that I read about him online. And I think you would agree with me. Like, when you meet someone in person, you get a feeling for that person. If that person is wrong and there's something dark about them, you sense it, you pick it up. And I didn't feel that. And I knew there was way more to the story than what was being shared online. So that's why I said, all right, let's do this. Let's come back. Let's stick it to the system.
Right. That's an amazing story. I mean, I didn't know if you guys wanted to talk about all this or not, but it's good that we're just touching on it. But I won't be long here, but I do have a couple things that relate to that time frame because
Nothing's
you
off,
know
Graham. Go
I
for it.
because I want to talk about whatever you guys need to talk about as well. But I'm glad you guys are willing to go back here because in 2000 I watched this. I was my sister was bugging me to watch The Secret. She knew that there was something wrong with me. I was in addiction, like cocaine and alcohol problems. So
Oh,
I
wow.
finally decided to watch it, and I swear it was probably like a month later. I was in rehab. Something just like, and I kind of was a bit spiritual anyway, so it wasn't like a stretch to me. It was just sort of it, but it was something that really helped me get onto the path that I'm on now. So that was a pretty pivotal point in my life. But then also we started this podcast in 2013, and I remember hearing about all that, and I was into sweat lodges and doing all kinds of like inner work and all like the self-help stuff, the spiritual new age kind of self-help stuff. And I remember that sort of backing, not backing you up personally. Like I don't remember you personally, but I remember all the stories about the sweat lodges in Arizona. And we were pushing back a bit, saying like this is like they were trying to demonize the whole thing, all the kind of like the spiritual self-help stuff. They use that case, and I remember this, and we were pushing back, going, this is bullshit. They're not, they're just like tarring everything now with this brush, that these things are like bad for you and all. And we knew how healthy a lot of this stuff was. So
I became the poster boy
yeah.
for everything that
Yeah.
people believed was wrong with personal performance and personal growth. And literally, you're right. They took that, but here's something, Graham, that's really important. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
No.
there was no one more hateful and attacking than the so-called spiritual people.
See,
I,
that's weird. That's even hard for me to
I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but it's true nonetheless. I mean, like I told you, no one from The Secret even sent me a text or gave me a phone call, and just weeks earlier, I was their best buddy, and everybody wanted to do a joint venture with me and do appearances with me and all that because I was I was really being blessed. I was blessed in my work, and just like that, it turned a complete 180, and all these, because the whole industry, as you described, was under attack. The best way for them to protect themselves was to distance themselves
Yeah.
from me as quickly as possible, and to turn around and join the fray and go, oh yeah, that James Arthur Ray, he's arrogant, and he doesn't listen to anybody, and he
Yeah.
marches to his own drum, and all these kinds of things, and we're not part of that.
yeah. And that kind of, I think that I was just thinking when you guys were talking about this, that I think it played a part in how we handled everything throughout the podcast and COVID and all that too, because it was pretty easy for us to see through it all because of things like that, because we even knew about the how corrupt the media was back then. Even if you're just talking about UFOs or spirituality or whatever, they were still stuck in this sort of materialistic paradigm where they wouldn't even accept that, like souls or spirit or was a real thing. I mean, meditation wasn't even really that big back then, even still, and even though there were studies back then saying how important meditation was for certain things. So yeah,
Well,
it helped us.
Yeah.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. It helped me too, because after what I went through and the total annihilation and crucifixion that I went through, it caused me to take off the illusionary glasses, if you will, and see things much more clearly. And so, by the time you mentioned COVID, by the time COVID rolled around, I was already seeing the whole world from a different perspective. Bersabeh, it was much easier for her because of how she was raised, but I was raised, in a Christian household. My father was a Protestant minister, and basically I always believed and was told that if somebody said something in the news, it was right. It was true. And I was taught that the government has your best interest at heart. And all those things, were
Yeah.
shattered in this experience in 2009.
Jaron, do you have anything to add?
Well, I mean, what was it? What was? I guess I mean, the COVID thing's got to be crazy. You're just coming back from that. What was it? Hmm. Well, I guess before we get into that, let's just go back to let's touch back on that secret stuff of that. Um, how have you sort of how have your thinking sort of around that secret stuff? How has it evolved now as we've gotten into this thing? And because it looks like now you can almost look at the weaponization of the masses as being used for those same sort of purposes, right? Like I've kind of look at the world now where we can all manifest some stuff here and there, but if you can get a lot of people thinking about the same thing, then you're really cooking with fire. So I'm just wondering how your thinking has sort of evolved about some of those things since the secret came out, especially after coming through COVID, and if that sort of stuff can be used against us, or if we can be used as useful idiots for other people's magic.
Secrets.
Well, yes, and let me just say, and let me step back in my latest book, which is entitled God, Money, and Sex: Understanding and Mastering the Three Human Dilemmas. And I say those are the three basic human dilemmas: God, money, and sex. And so one of the things that I always had an issue with, to some degree, well, to a large degree, was that the way The Secret was portrayed, it was portrayed for a mass audience. I get that. And it went worldwide because of its simplicity. And yet it's much more complex than just visualize a bicycle. If you remember one of the scenes, and the next morning you get up and there's a bicycle on your porch. Well, try that and see if it works. It doesn't work. And because there's so much more to it than that. It does not say that there isn't a law of attraction. Quantum physics tells us that every single thing in this universe is comprised of frequencies. Tesla told us that as well. If you want to understand the universe, look at it in terms of vibration and frequency. And so, but to say like attracts like, and if you just visualize something, it's going to come to you, is just, it's not true, because you have to um, practice three things. You have to think, you have to feel, and you have to act. Now, if you look scientifically at how we operate, the we are electromagnetic beings. That's one of the four fundamental forces in this universe, is electromagnetism. And so electric is dynamic, it's moving forward, magnetic is pulling inward, and it's more receptive. And we're both. And so if you look at just science, well, not ancient science like fundamental science, but more quantum physics, then the greatest magnetism comes from the heart. And the heart is not the thinking mechanism, it's the feeling mechanism. And so your feelings are much more powerful than your thoughts. And so how many times do we hear, change your thinking, change your world? Well, not so fast. What you think about comes about. These are all nice memes, but it's not entirely true. It's partially true, but it's not entirely true, because you have to think it, you have to feel it, and you have to act upon it. And I'll give you a real practical example. If you're thinking about something positively, but you're feeling about it negatively, then the feelings are going to trump. Oh, there's a good word. The feelings are going to trump the thoughts. They just are. And then you have to act. Let's please be assured that 60% of the word attraction is action.
Yeah.
And so you have to think it, you have to feel it, you have to act upon it. Now, how is that being applied in today's world? Well, it's being applied um, tremendously in an evil way, Darren. Creating fear. Fear is a feeling. And if people in fear don't think clearly, and they don't act clearly, and they turn over their liberties and their freedoms and say, save me. This is what happened during the war on terror, and if anyone's traveled recently, Bersabeh and I just flew to Orlando recently, and we have to go through, they can ransack your bag. They don't have a license to search your bag, but we allow them to do it. Why do we do that? That's really illegal. It's really against our principles. You can't search and seize without a search warrant. But they go through your bag and they make a mess out of it, and then you have to go and you go through you can't take water on the plane. Oh my God, water is dangerous. You have to go through this scanning device, and then when we went to Orlando recently, I got randomly chosen to be patted down. If you've ever been that guy, I was that guy. And this guy patted my crotch. And I was like, wait a second, this is going way too far. And so we've given away our power because the powers that are in charge right now are straight up evil. They just are. We are not in a war against Republican and Democrat. We're not in a war versus conservative versus libertarian or what do they call themselves? Progressive, even though they're not progressive. We're in a spiritual war. That's a fact. And this has been predicted. Read your Bible. There are forces in this universe that are beyond, going back to what you were saying, Graham, they're beyond what we have the acuity to perceive with our physical senses. We live in a 5% universe. 95% of what exists here, we can't perceive it because it's at a different frequency rate than where we're operating. And so hopefully I'm answering your question, Darren. Obviously, we're very enthusiastic about these topics, but they're understood by many people in power, and they're being used in a evil and dark way. And so are they real? You bet they're real. But we have to take our power back. We have to realize that there's way more of us than there are of them. And to the degree that we can plug back in and remember who we are, then we have all the power that they can never have, because we're so much greater in numbers than the small numbers of people who are driving the things in the world right now.
Can we do that? Can we do that, say, without the numbers? Because there's more of us than there is of them, but most of us are aren't up for the task. So can we, like, how can we sort of circumvent this and get our best life kind of without assuming that the herd is, just going to do herd stuff, and I just don't want to be bothered with them at this point.
Do you want to do it? We
Yeah,
were
well,
talking
I
about
think
that this morning.
I think that starts with every individual themselves. So the first thing you do is just start with yourself. And that people say, "Oh, I can't do anything by myself. What is that going to do? Who am I to make any change?" Or that's usually their comment. And the answer to that is it has a big effect. So whatever you do in your life and the choices that you make has a ripple effect on consciousness. So if there is if it only takes a few to rule us, it only takes a few of us to change it too.
To overcome those rulers.
Yes, to overcome it. So we have to start with ourselves, and how we do it is how we're helping people to do that is first and foremost is take responsibility of your life and everything that's happened to it, all the bad things, all the good things, everything. Because the moment you do that, you come out of this victim mentality and you start to take action. You go into, okay, what am I doing here? What can I do differently so that I can do better and have a better effect? Not only in my life, but in my family, in my household, and then perhaps it's going to
My
go
city, my country, my world.
exactly. It'll ripple out. And the other part is,
And that this is what we applied, starting in the desert in 2013,
sure,
being $20 million in debt and homeless. These are the very things that we had to apply on ourselves. And the first thing, let me just build upon what she said about absolute responsibility, is I had to stand there and go, okay, how am I at cause for this? This is horrific, and I can blame the government, I can blame the legal system, and rightfully so in many, many ways. And yet, where's that going to get me? It's going to get me down victim lane. It's not going to get me anywhere else. If I don't like what's going on in our world right now, Darren, then I have to ask myself, how did I contribute to that?
sure.
As an American, and I know you guys are Canadian, but the same principles are cross contextual. As an American, I'll just talk from us. you know, most of us have been asleep at the wheel for a long time. We've had it way too comfortable, way too easy,
Sure.
and so consequently, we don't pay attention. And if you don't pay attention to politics, to not pay attention to politics or take interest in politics is to be ruled by evil men because power corrupts. And so consequently, we had to take absolute responsibility. And for me, and then I'll give it back to Bersabeh, I had to say, how did I create this? Well, I did create it because in 2006, I asked God to help me have a bigger reach and a deeper message around the planet. And by the way, I think the message we're giving right now is bigger and deeper and way more than what we had before. But nonetheless, if you'd have told me I had to go through total destruction and go through prison to get there, I may have thought twice about it. But how did I become the target of the legal system? Well, I put myself in the public eye and I became the big shot. And therefore, this small town where it occurred, let's take down the gorilla from Beverly Hills and let's build a platform on it called Tough on Crime. And let's get reelected and let's get all the media attention and let's do all those things. If I had not put myself in that position, there had been numerous deaths. Graham, you mentioned the sweat lodges. My legal team told me there'd been numerous deaths in sweat lodges prior to my experience. Numerous. And they told me, don't worry, it's always a civil issue at best. It's never been prosecuted as a crime. Well, guess what? I made case law because I was the first one to be prosecuted as a crime. How did I create that? By how I just said. It's like the so-called celebrity who says, all I want to do is be left alone. Well, who put you in that place to not be left alone? You did. So take some responsibility for that. And that's step number one. Does that answer your question, Darren?
Yeah,
There's more steps, but that's the first place where it has to start.
yeah, no, I think that does. I mean, what was that whole situation like? I mean, were you there? I mean, it must have just your world sort of must have been crashing down around you on just like multiple fronts. It must like everything sort of slipping through your fingers. I mean, so does that sort of get into now a snowballing effect, where as you're sort of losing your grip on everything, you're just sort of you start almost perpetuating it, right?
I was in shock. It broke. First of all, it broke my heart. I cared about these people. I devoted my entire life to trying to help and empower people to the best of my ability. And you can imagine to have people get harmed, much less lose their lives, on my watch was the antithesis of anything I'd ever lived my life for. And so I was in shock, and I just, I was scrambling. I had a medical doctor that was in the lodge, and I was saying to her, "What can we do? What can we do?" And she said, "Don't worry, I've seen this before. And when the EMTs get here, they'll revive them." Well, obviously they didn't, but I mean, I was grasping at straws because my whole world started to crumble, and that was just if that's all that would have happened, Darren, then that would have been more than enough. I carry that every day, and I will for the rest of my life. It broke my heart. And yet, you can either be bitter and angry and heartbroken, or you can be more awake and alert and more empowered and decide to make it work to something greater than to fold to it and be a victim of it. And I chose the latter. And that starts with taking absolute responsibility. Okay, I'm responsible for this. The first chapter in my book Redemption is entitled I Am Responsible. And yet there's still people out there today, oh, James Arthur Ray never takes responsibility. Well, what do you want me to do? I mean, the first chapter in my book is I Am Responsible. I'm telling you right now, I take responsibility. I was the leader. It was my choice to do a dangerous activity. Did I mean to have people be harmed? Absolutely not. But I created and chose to do the situation. And so therefore, as a leader, you step up to that. And if you can't, then you better just stand down. And that gives cross contextual to not only my life and Bersabeh's life. I mean, Bersabeh's had, in my opinion, much more horrific things happen to her than mine, and she doesn't agree because everybody looks at different things differently. But nonetheless, she had to take responsibility too, and that's where we both began together to say, "All right, how do we create this situation, and what are we going to do with it?"
I love it. I love it. I mean, that's stuff we talk about on the show too. It really resonates. What's next, Bersabeh?
The next step would be to start asking questions of yourself, like why do you value the things you value? Why do you do the things that you do on a day-to-day basis? Why
Why do
do
you
I like
think the
why
way
do
you
you
think?
yeah, why do you think the way that you think? And by doing these things, you start realizing that I'm not even living my own life. I'm living a life of all the things that I've been programmed into since birth. Your parents, school, the media, and politics, the whole thing. Once you start doing that, the next step after that would be to go back and
Clean up your body.
clean up your body,
Yeah,
your physical
you
body.
have to clean up a tie. And this is something the secret really missed. And sorry to take your role
Taking my
there.
role.
I know. Well, go.
No, I'm
You can
okay.
talk a
No,
lot
I'm
because you
good.
you did this way better than more than I did.
I share similarities with Graham. I've had addictions in the past, so I know where you come from.
Yes, yes.
So yes, I have to clean up your body is one of the most important things, if not the most important thing you can do. Not only from the food system that they're trying to poison us and kill us. I mean, that's just a fact, especially here in the US. And then I had drug addiction. I was a smoker for 24 years, alcohol, drugs, you name it. Once you start putting those things aside, because we do those things as an effect to a cause. So what is the cause that drove you to do those things? It's all the unresolved emotional issues that you try to bury, you don't want to deal with, you don't want to feel it. So you take something so you can numb it out, so you don't have to deal with this lower level frequencies that you feel 24/7 without taking any substance. So when I stopped doing those things, and the thing I did this time was I just allowed all those demons to come up, and I dove straight into hell.
And they did come up, and
Yeah, and he
I
he
went
was
to
he
hell
was
with
when
her.
he did.
I went to hell with her, and it was hell for years. It really was.
And what happens, so you got these unresolved emotional issues. You go in there and heal these things. So let's for an example, say things happen to you in your childhood that cause you to do the things that you did, that ripple effects out into your future, and why you have these dysfunctional behaviors. So therefore, you're the fragmented. So let's say it's like a soul retrieval. When you go back and deal with these unresolved emotional issues, you take that part of yourself that you left there and you bring it back. So now you're bringing all these pieces of yourself back together, and when you start feeling whole again from inside in your center, I mean that is a force and a power that it can't be shaken, and that's what we're committed to in helping people, individuals, one by one, even the cat, to
I don't know about the cat, but maybe.
the cat likes this conversation. So and once you do that, and once a person can feel that power from their center, that's something that you can't shake. There's nothing that can throw you off once you get there.
That power is God. It really is, and you have to. And this is going. If I can digress to the secret, these are things that the secret just totally missed, and I understand why. Again, it was produced for a mass market, but I talked about a lot of these things in a 3-hour recorded interview
Mhm.
that they did with me, and most of my best material ended up on the cutting room floor because it didn't really fit with the vision of the producer. And I'm not taking shots at that. I understand what she was doing, and it was her film, but nonetheless, it really left a poor impression on a lot of people that all I had to do, and this is primarily what was portrayed. I think about it, and it's going to come about. And that's just not true. And by the way, step number two. So the first one is absolute responsibility. Step number two is ask yourself, why do I value what I value? Why do I think what I think?
Yeah.
I'll give you an example of my own life. I I had a 7,500 square foot estate in Beverly Hills on Mulholland Drive as a single guy. Now, what the heck was I thinking? Well, I was thinking that socialized mind had programmed me that was a symbol of
Important.
success. It was
Yeah.
important. I mean, there 7,500 square feet. Come on, really? There were rooms I never even went into, but they looked good, And if I'd have known Bersabeh back then, I'd come on over, sweetie,
Yeah,
and
look at my place.
let me show you my beautiful home. But I didn't know her then, and she probably wouldn't have been impressed because she was from a different ilk. Thank God. But nonetheless, that's a simple example of why we think what we think. Why did I think that if the media told me something, that I was to believe it and the government had my best interest at heart? Well, it's because I've been conditioned in that from the time I was born as an American citizen. And so, oh, by the way, legal American citizen here. I just need to make that point. Legal immigrant. And so you start to shatter those things. And once you get those shattered and you start to decide who
Yeah.
you're going to be, and this is part of my process, standing in the desert at worse than zero. If you're a viewer today and you're broke, my heart goes out to you. That's tough. Broke looked good to me. I was $20 million in debt. Broke was $20 million over my head. And so that was the starting point. I had to start to think differently. I had to value things differently. And I had to decide, again, as I stated earlier, who is James Arthur Ray 3.0 going to be? Am I going to be a material monger? Am I going to worship money and materialism? Am I going to chase all those things that I've been conditioned to chase? Or am I going to be grounded in morality and principle and virtue and get back to a relationship with God and come back to the heart center? And I chose the latter, not without a lot of angst and a lot of pain, quite frankly. But that's part of the process.
I heard you talk about this on another show. I'm not too sure how to ask it, but it's kind of like the difference between well-being and wealthy. Like you mentioned that you have to give up. Like there's a give and take, and it's spiritual. But to be successful, you do have to give something up. It just happens, right? It's like how magic works, really. I mean, like when you do kind of other like ceremonial magic or chaos magic, like something is going to happen, right? If you want that money, like, I mean, a friend of mine needed like a specific amount of money, and they asked for it and they got it, but they wrecked a car to get that exact amount of money, like, so you talk about that. But as far as like success and career wisdom goes, you realized at one point that, your motives, maybe the success without the right motives were happening. So can you talk about how to maybe shift your motives in, because we love the Napoleon Hill stuff too. We love a lot of this sort of manifestation. I mean, I think The Secret got a bad rap because it was very materialistic as well. It was all about money and things and stuff. And there's like there's a huge spiritual component that should be added to that. So I guess kind of how that this plays out in careers and success.
Well, it's a great question, Graham. Let's go back to the word wealth, because my New York Times bestseller is called Harmonic Wealth, and my objective in writing that book, which is 2 books ago now, was to redefine the word wealth. If you ask 99% of the people to define what wealth means, they'll instantly say money. Well, if you trace the etymology of the word wealth back to its origins, it literally translates as well-being. And here's the harsh reality. I've worked with a lot of multimillionaires and even billionaires, and they're not very wealthy. They have money, but they're not wealthy, because wealth is well-being. And so no one worries more about money than the poor than the rich, because the rich, your lifestyle tends to grow to meet or exceed whatever money is coming in. And that's true in business, it's true in personal life. When I created an Inc. 500 company with my team, with the help of my team, and we were on the Inc. 500 and we were making $10 million a year, um, there was $10 million worth of problems that came with that. Every prize has a price. And what we tend to do, and this is left out of the secret idea too, is that we think we can get, like your example is great. I'm going to get this amount of money, but I'm not going to pay the price. Well, I did pay the price. I paid the price by losing my car. And I didn't even think that through, or I didn't think anything like that would happen. But there's a reciprocity in this universe, that to become great at anything means you're not going to be great at something else. You have to let go. It's a give and take. And so consequently, when I everyone thought, oh, they looked at me and they go, oh, I'd love to be this media star and be on the road over 250 days a year and have a home in Beverly Hills, that I was rarely in, by the way, because I was always flying all over the world. So I didn't even really get to enjoy it. But I also had, you know, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of legal bills and 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 things that I had to care for in a $10 million company that were much, much grander than when I had $100,000 company. And that's okay. If that's what you want, then go in with eyes wide open. But don't fool yourself into thinking I'm going to get to a point where it's going to be easy street.
Yeah, no,
It's never easy.
never.
Life is not easy. Easy and great cannot coexist in the same space. That's just not how it works. You look at any of the great philosophers or prophets, they were incredibly dialed in and they lived difficult lives. A lot of them lost their lives as a result of it. And so there's always a price for the prize. And you have to ask yourself, what price am I willing to pay? I mentioned earlier the so-called celebrity. You can tell I'm not real impressed with that, but nonetheless, the so-called celebrity who says, "Oh, all I want is my own space. I want to be left alone." Well, you're paying the price for what you created,
Yeah.
and you're always going to have to pay the price. So quit whining, because you're the one responsible for it.
Darren, do you have anything to add to that as far as success in business,
Well,
manifestation?
how do you sort of walk that line? How do you decide, because there's a price to not doing it too, right? There's a price to
Right.
watching the television, and there's a price to all that stuff. I mean, how can a person sort of figure out how to walk that line? Because I mean, life's always, the old saying, money can't buy you happiness is true, but it can definitely solve a lot of misery. I mean, outside of the existential crisis that we face, loss, things like that, money can really solve a lot of those other problems. Now, that seems to have an upper limit, which seems to be sort of when your needs are all sort of met and you don't have to think about it. It seems to be, once you don't have to think about money for your shelter and your needs and all that, it doesn't seem to have a huge measurable effect further than that. But up into that point of providing for you and yours, it has this probably the most measurable effect outside of tragedy. So how do you sort of fit that line? Because then you can add to that a little further success, so that you don't have to sell 40 or 50 or 60 hours a week of your life, so that the people you're providing for you don't get to see anyway. A little bit of success, so you don't have to do all that, because a lot of people right now are giving away 60 hours a week of their life just to barely get by, and and they hate it so much that when they go home, all they can do is watch TV or Instagram reels or sports games or fill in the blank. So it's like there's just sort of that cost to inaction as well. So how does a person sort of find that that middle ground where they can have a bit of abundance, but not at the cost of, you know, well, obviously your cost was extremely high, but there's lesser costs too that are still a problem. So how do you suppose people sort of find that path to walk?
Well, there's so many facets to that whole line of questioning that you just asked, Darren. Let me see if I can ferret it out, and Bersabeh, you jump in whenever
Sure.
you will. But first of all, I told you my latest book is called God, Money, and Sex: The Three Human Dilemmas, and the middle one is obviously money. Most people, let's talk to people who don't have money today. Most people have made money their god. And that's what's happening in our society today. That's what drove a prosecutor to lawfare and to weaponization of the legal system, because they wanted to get more power, more money, more exposure, all those kinds of things. And that's what's happening in our world today as you look at those dark forces that are running our governments. And I mean that sincerely. Dark forces are running our governments because they want more money and they want more power. I mean, Joseph Biden has 20 bank accounts. That's a fact. It's been proven. And he's never even had a business, and he's received millions of dollars from foreign countries. That's That's ridiculous. I mean, as president of the United States, how many people in Congress are multi-millionaires and they're making a couple hundred, maybe a couple $100,000 a year? Well, you don't become that making that kind of salary. So there's other things that are going on because money has become God. Now, if you're a viewer today and you say, well, that's not me, I'm, as you were saying, Darren, I'm scrambling for money. Let's back up, because most people don't get money because they don't understand money. And let me break it down. And I talk about this in the book. Money is an idea. It just is. You hold up a Canadian. Do you guys still have loonies? I don't even know if you have loonies.
We do now too.
Yeah, or a US dollar. That's not money. That's an idea. Because and if I may just talk from US, if I hold up a US dollar, it's not worth a dollar. We think it is, but it's not anymore. And we talk about inflation. Well, inflation is actually the depreciation of the dollar. It's not inflation. Things don't cost more to make nowadays. It's that the dollars, whether it's Canadian or US or anywhere else, are worth less. And so it takes more to get the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, what does that mean? It means it's fiat currency. It means it's phony. It's like monopoly money, except it's worse because monopoly money doesn't have debt attached to it. If you lose all your funny money in monopoly, you don't end up with a bunch of debt. You lose all your money in this game, you end up with a bunch of debt. Why? Because the Federal Reserve, look on the US dollar, it says Federal Reserve note on the top. It's not a US dollar. It belongs to the Federal Reserve, and they ran it off on a printing press. And what happens in the government, and it's happening more in the last 3 years than it's happened at any time prior. We need to send money to protect Ukraine's borders, even though we don't care about our borders. We're going to protect Ukraine's borders. Well, I got news for you. It's not about protecting their borders. There's laundering going on there, and there's a lot of nefarious things that are happening that we're not being told about. But it's all, so we don't have the money to do it. But let's sign a bill that we're going to give more money. Okay, so what do? We trot off to the Federal Reserve, which was reinstituted in 1933 for the third time. It's been shut down twice before. And for the third time, it was reinstituted in 1933. And I'll just use a simple example here. You go to the Federal Reserve, you say, I need $100. And they go, okay, let me print you $100 bill. All right, here's your $100. Now you owe me $150. And you say, well, I don't have $150. Well, okay, then let me print you off $200. Okay, good. Here's $200. Now you owe us $300. Well, wait a second. I don't have to. Three, because every single thing that's printed off has interest attached. And guess who's paying for that? Darren, Graham, James, Bersabeh. We're all paying for that. And the people making the decisions aren't asking if it's okay or if we're on board. It's just happening. So someone goes, well, what do I do about that? You understand the game. You understand that money is an idea. If you can get that, money is an idea. It's nothing more than an agreement that this is worth something. Pretend that I'm holding a dollar bill. It's not worth a dollar, but pretend that I'm holding a dollar bill. We have an agreement that it's worth a dollar. It's not worth a dollar. It's a symbol of debt. That's what it is. Every single dollar, I don't care what country you're in, that you have in your pocket or purse is a symbol of the debt that you have. It's not a symbol of money you have. Every single digit in your stock portfolio, all of that is nothing more than an idea that we've agreed upon. And so consequently, how many ideas can you have? Well, I can have unlimited ideas. That's right. So you have unlimited potential, don't you?
Yep.
Because money is an idea. Get this. Money is an idea. And so how many ideas can you have? Unlimited ideas. I have ideas all the time. Now you have to act on it and you have to bring it into physical form. You can't just say, "Oh, I've got an idea and now it's going to manifest in front of me." That doesn't work. That's not how this universe works. And so consequently, if I have these ideas, then that's God speaking normally to me if it's a virtuous idea. And this folds into your question too, Darren, is that how do you escape this cycle of and the trap that we're in? Well, you ask yourself the question, is this idea that I'm bringing into the world going to provide value to the world? Is it going to be in alignment with God's plan to continually grow and expand the world? Or is it just something that I want for me? If the answer is B, it's just something I want for me, then that's evil. That's contrary to God. And by the way, they say in the sacred teachings that if your ideas and the things you're going after are not in alignment with God's will, that the entire universe, you're bringing a foreign substance into the universe, and the entire universe will come at you and attack you, and it eventually will be taken away. But if it is in alignment with God's will, then it will be something that God, the grand architect of this entire universe, wants to bring in for the benefit of everyone. And if I can be honest, and that's what you've got to be honest with yourself on this one. If I can honestly say that I want to contribute to mankind, then you've got the power of God coming into you and working through you. Now, please be cautious here, because I can't tell you how many people I work one-on-one with who say, "Oh, I just want to help people." How many times you hear that? "Oh, I just want to help people." But when you boil it right down, they want to help themselves. It's really nice to say, "I want to help people," but the vast majority of people don't want to help people. They want to help themselves, and that's incongruent with how this universe works.
I like it. Darren, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, that makes a lot of sense. It does make a lot of sense. That seems to be, I mean, it's very down the lines of the stuff Napoleon Hill was talking about. That's sort of, you got to figure out how you're gonna be of service. So, I mean, we did a fun little segment on the show a little while ago about how the same amount of gold would buy you a suit in Roman times as will buy you a good suit today, and that seems to carry out throughout the times. It's interesting how that the same amount of gold we did a thing on how much the price of houses had gone up in Toronto. It was, I think, 60x or 67x, and then we looked at how much gold had gone up in the same amount of time compared to the dollar. It was within like 3%. So there's definitely a problem to the printing of the money, but we do need the money. We need so do you think the money was okay, when it was backed by gold 50 years ago, or Was
Well,
that the real the disconnect, or does it go further back than that?
well, gold, it goes further back than that,
Yeah.
but it's been creeping for a long time, and now it's running faster. And I'm firmly convinced, we're convinced, the reason it's running faster now and it's so much more apparent is because the dark forces are running scared. They literally are. I mean, let's face it. How many, 35, 36 prosecutions of Donald Trump? Here's a guy who's 78 years old, and he was an upstanding citizen and a contributor to the world for 75 years. And now, all of a sudden, since he announced candidacy again, he's got all these indictments that come in. I mean, if that's not obvious of what's going on, these dark forces are scared to death, literally, that they're going to lose power. And when people and fear, we go back to what we said earlier, fear is a primary motivator. And so take heart, as a viewer today, take heart because I believe that good and God always win and justice is always served. Sometimes it takes a long time. But to your point, Darren, of was it better when it was attached to gold? Absolutely. Gold is God's money. It's tangible. It's God's money. It's something God created. It's gold. And so, God bless Richard Nixon in 1971, who disconnected us from gold, from the gold standard temporarily, because there were speculators in the market, end quote. And here we are. And now we've got all this tremendous debt. Last month, in the United States, and I apologize to you guys from Canada because I don't have enough Canadian data, but I'm pretty sure it's similar all around the world. Last month in the United States, every single tax dollar paid went to paying the interest on the loan in this country.
Mhm.
Every single tax dollar is just paying the interest on the loan. Well, that's a surefire, strategy for crash and burn. And by the way, I believe the dark forces wanted to crash and burn because then you will own nothing and be happy about it, says the World Economic Forum, and Klaus Schwab, who is the demon. And so, I mean, and I'm being facetious, but I'm not. I mean, these people want to control the world and they want it for themselves. And so therefore they're doing all these heinous things, and they're doing it more and more and more and more frequently. I mean, they're bragging about it now. They're not hiding it. It used to be kind of secretive and more covert. Now it's very overt. And so consequently, that tells me that they're running scared. They wouldn't be so overt about what they're doing. They'd be more secretive and covert, like it's been for so long, if they weren't feeling like, oh my God, we're being threatened here.
Sure.
Yeah, I like how you guys push back against that. I mean, it really is. It's refreshing because a lot of these communities have been sort of split, and some of them just won't speak up politically or have to stay silent. And I like how you guys will touch that. That's good. Is there more about the book that we should talk about? The God, Sex, and Money? Did I say the wrong order? God, Money, Sex.
God, money, and sex. It's God, money, and sex. But I'd love to talk about that. Where would you like to start? I mean, obviously, it starts with God. And we've talked a little bit about money. We can talk some more about that. And we haven't talked at all about sex. But they're all very important topics in today's world. And that's pretty obvious.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I mean, I think Darren was thinking about talking about the family a bit too, from marriages to Marxism, or so maybe that's part of that sex thing in your book. Maybe we can touch on that a bit.
It definitely is, and it's part of the God piece too. Why don't you talk? I've been on a roll,
About
Bersabeh, about family. You can talk to that very
Well, I think
fluently.
one of the major things that's been happening for a while now is breaking that family unit and, pushing women to thinking that they want to compete with men and thinking that raising kids and taking care of a house is is degrading for them, which, you know, unfortunately, this is something that they've programmed into people, and that's not the truth. Because if a woman raising a child and taking care of a home and taking care of her husband is the most important job that she can ever have, and it's unfortunate what's happening. She will feel a lot happier. She will have a lot more joy. I mean, we're men and women are equal, but we're not the same.
That's right.
We don't compete. We're equal in nature because God made us both, and there's only two. There's man
there's
and
only two
woman.
sexes, you know, and there's XX chromosomes and XY, and that's follow the science, okay?
That's the
Let's follow
science.
the science. Anyway, go ahead,
That's
Bersabeh.
the science. But and that's, you know, and that's what that's part of the whole breaking down of the society and the culture that we live in now, is that they're creating more confusion. But if the kid is not going to listen to their own parents at home and they're listening to their teachers, and then they say, oh, the teacher starts programming the kid into, oh, well, maybe you're in the wrong body, maybe, you know, you want to do this or that, and they're doing that in California without the parents' consent, giving the kid, you know, the whole hormonal change, whatever, you know, they do with them.
And mutilating their bodies
Yes.
permanently.
Yes. So the family unit is very important. And the fact that they're attacking men for, what is it, toxic masculinity is absolutely ridiculous. Men need to be men. Women want men to be men. Women do
right.
not want to be married to a girly man.
To a boy.
To a boy.
Mm.
We want you to be a man. And that's, I think more people need to come out and talk about that. More women need to come out and talk about that. Women are not made to compete with men in anything. And I'm confident enough of myself to say I will not compete in business. I will not compete, especially in sports or any of those things, because that's not what we were made for, period. And they might not like it, but it's a fact. And, you know,
Just because you don't like it doesn't mean it's not true.
Yeah, it doesn't mean
You
that
know,
it's not true.
you've talked about this before, but this is very appropriate, I believe. Talk about how you grew up and got into gang behavior, and how if the world was then as it is now, you might have had some gender confusion.
Oh, for sure. Because I grew up without my parents in the house. I grew up with the television and the school system. So, and given the environment that I grew up in, I had to kind of become masculine in order to protect myself. So I was, you know, if you would have seen me years ago, I look like a little thug. So given that image, if I had a school teacher or someone of authority level come to me and tell me, say, well, maybe you're meant to be a boy because I was good at sports, they call you a tomboy or whatever it was, I might have bit. Okay, maybe you're right. Maybe I should, because you're a kid. You don't understand what the heck you're doing. You don't understand what's going on. And if I would have made such a decision like that, I would have ruined the rest of my life.
Yeah, you would have ruined our life.
I wouldn't be here.
Yeah, you would not be here, and I would miss you immensely.
And the whole go ahead.
Well, do you see the culture changing at all? I mean, it's so fascinating because we went from trying to accept the tomboys and the gender expression in the 80s and 90s to now all of a sudden it means that expression no longer is like, you know, supposed to be accepted. Now it's like you're actually the opposite sex. But what about the culture and the traditional marriages? Like there seems to be a swing coming back now, a pendulum, people pushing back. Would you guys say we're on the right track now, or is it still, are we still going through the turbulence of this?
Well,
and can we overshoot?
Say that again, Darren.
And can we overshoot? Like Graham mentioned the pendulum going back. Well, the shitty thing about pendulums is they rarely seem to stop in the middle, right where they might benefit everyone.
Well, the thing about a pendulum, that's a great metaphor. thing about a pendulum is that the swing to the right will always equal the swing to the left, and maybe I should have said that in reverse, because again we tend to categorize right as more conservative and more fundamental, and left as more liberal. But we've certainly swung to more liberal in recent years, and God knows you've seen this in Canada, and so
we're headed to communism.
and we're headed to communism. That's where they're wanting to take us. That's a fact, and so all these things are part of it. Going back to your question, Graham, I hope that we're beginning to see the swing. I'm not sure yet, because I think personally, I believe we haven't experienced enough pain yet. Here's something that's not popular, but it's true. Pain is the mother of all growth.
Yeah.
Pain is not a signal to suffer. Pain is a signal to grow. Bersabeh and I work out together almost every single day. We go to the gym, we lift weights, and we really do work out. And recently, I've had a pain in my left knee. All right. Well, that means something's off. That means I'm doing and exercising correctly. That means I need to get an adjustment. That means I need to stretch more. That means I need to do something differently. Pain is not a signal to suffer, it's a signal to grow. And I think right now we're in the pain point. And here's the great news: if you've ever had a nightmare and you've awakened in the middle of the night and you sit up in bed and your heart is pounding and you're breathing rapidly and you're maybe perspiring, and then you go, oh God, it was just a dream. Well, please remember, it was the nightmare that woke you up. You follow? The nightmare is what woke you up. The nightmare is not fun, but the nightmare is what woke you up. We're in the nightmare phase right now. It's not fun. It's not fun at all. It's like, oh my God, we're going to hell in a handbasket. No, we're going through hell and we're going to emerge out into something greater. That's our opinion and our focus. And so going back to the family, which this is really big for Bersabeh and I, we grew up very differently. If you can't tell, there's an age difference between us, and certainly you can tell. But we're about 24 years apart, so we're different generations. When I was growing up, Mom was home every day when I came home from school. When I was growing up, my dad was a Protestant minister, so I was grounded in the Christian faith very solidly, and we had breakfast together, we had dinner together, and we didn't watch TV. We talked. We had conversation and communion together as a family. We did things together as a family. Well, Bersabeh can tell you what her experience was, but it was diametrically complete opposite. It was grab and run. Whatever you need to eat, grab it and run and do your own thing. And parents were never home. Well, I believe that's by design. I really do. And I'm certainly not a pessimist, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but here's the fact. So many so-called conspiracy theories have become truth if you just give them time. The things that used to be conspiracy theories now are proving to be true, like chemtrails. Oh my God, chemtrails. That's just planes, flying overhead. No, it's not. And guess what? This week, RFK Jr. said, we're going to get rid of chemtrails because that is criminal. And so all of a sudden,
it became a fact.
It became into the public eye, and it's not a conspiracy theory anymore. I mean, Bersabeh and I see them in our skies here in Nevada every single morning when we walk the dog. They're just everywhere. And so the breaking up of the family unit is by design. That's where I started. And it started little by little to say, okay, women's rights. Well, you don't want to be home and be a mother. Yeah. That's demeaning. You need to get out and have a career. And so we got conditioned to that. Okay. So now we have two working parents. And now we have children primarily around Gen X and millennials who grew up without parents home. I'm on the tail end of I'm one of the baby boomers that didn't have any fun. I was I was too late for Woodstock or all the other things, but nonetheless, that shifted, and so now little by little, let's go to the next level. So let's start to have women's sports, and that's okay because some women are athletic, like Bersabeh. But it's not okay when if you blow it out to where we are today. It's not okay for a man pretending to be a woman to beat the living life out of a woman at the Olympics and get the gold medal for women's boxing. That's that's not okay. That's a hatred of women. It literally is a hatred of women. Why do the dark forces hate women? Well, because women reproduce. And, they keep telling us we have too many people on the planet. That's a lie. I talk about this in God, Money, and Sex. It's a lie. We don't have too many people on the planet. Our population is decreasing at record numbers. Sperm counts are going down 1% a year. And that's in guys, and why is that in guys? Because of all the toxicity and all the pesticides and all the poisons that are put into our foods. And so it just goes on, and little by little we get to I'll just, I'll be controversial here, but this is what we believe is God's will. I was here when Barack Obama was in the White House, and you guys were too. And so was Bersabeh. But nonetheless, let's make gay marriage okay. And back then, I was of the mindset, okay, what's the big deal? Two people love each other, they're not bothering me, it's okay. Well, that's like an entry level drug. It's like a marijuana that leads to something stronger. And so now we made that okay. And now jettison out for a few years, and all of a sudden we don't even have a gender. What is a woman? Toxic masculinity. And we have to accept all these things. We turn Easter Sunday into LGBTQ Gender Trans Day. I mean, it just keeps going and going and going, and inch by inch we give away everything. And I'll just say this and then stop. If we can be conditioned to not have a gender, if we can be conditioned to not have an identity, if we can be conditioned to not know there's differences between XX and XY, follow the science, Fauci, then we can be conditioned to not have an identity. And if we don't have an identity, then we have nothing to stand on. We have no principles. We have no values. We don't know who we are. We're just lost in the soup, and we're easy to be led around by the nose.
That's a good summary. That's a good way to put it. I mean, I fell into the trap in the early, like late 90s, let's say late 90s, early 2000s. I mean, I'm 54 now. I didn't have kids and I regret it. I didn't have a family and I regret it. I mean, I went through a bunch of long-term relationships, was engaged a couple times, but I was like at one point before sort of the awakening, when I was sort of in the rat race, I was like, oh, there's just too many people on the earth. There's like, I fell into all those narratives, and I was like, I was like not pretending, but I thought I was rebellious. Oh, I'm not going to just fall into the family trap and have a family like everybody else does. All these unhappy families. I'm just going to, either wait a while or wait for the right person, or I don't need that. Now I totally regret it.
50% of marriages end in divorce. Why would I contribute to that? Blah, blah. Yeah. I was right there with you. How old was I when we got married? 54.
7.
50. It's never too late, Graham.
I think you were 60.
It's never too late, man. We've been together for 12 years, but we've been married going on 4. And I was the sworn bachelor.
You were 60, yeah.
I was rebellious, and I was a free spirit. Same, exactly what you're describing. I bought it hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this has been great. Yeah. Is there anything else going on for you guys coming up? Any like lectures, courses, any of that kind of stuff? Modern Alchemy, your podcast. I wanted to ask you why you named it Modern Alchemy.
Oh,
Oh, thanks for asking. Alchemy.
I like that, by the way, because
I'm glad you
Thank
do.
you.
I'm glad you. Thank you. Because I've been really blessed to be exposed to a wide variety of teachings. I was raised in the Christian tradition. I I very fundamentally believe in the teachings of Christ, and I I wanted to dig deeper. And when I read the Bible, which I do, I read it in depth. I really get into what is being said here. And we could talk about how traditional religion has lied to us, and that's by design too. Because if we can keep people simple and stupid, and they think that we have to go to the Pope, or we have to go to confession, or we have to just say, Jesus, please save me, and I'm saved, then we don't change. We don't grow. And that's not what Christ taught at all. And so consequently, I went off on a search, and I studied all the great religions of the world. And I've also been really blessed to study in many of the ancient sacred teachings in Egypt on numerous occasions. I've been to the Amazon and studied with ayahuasquero. I've been brought into many of those teachings and schooled in those teachings, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. And so, alchemy. Alchemy is a powerful, powerful thing that's been bastardized, and it was done intentionally, like so many things we've talked about. Alchemy, a lot of people think, well, alchemy was about these crazy pseudoscientists who were trying to turn base metal into gold. Well, that was a front for the Catholic Church, because when they were coming in and wiping out all the ancient teachings, and they burnt the library in Alexandria to the ground and said, now we're done with the ancient world. And all of these things have been lost, and a people without a history don't have any lessons to learn from, and they don't know a lot of the fundamental truths. And so I've been really blessed to be exposed to some of those traditions with real teachers, not pseudo teachers and not drugstore teachers. But alchemy, truly understood, is not turning lead into gold. That's a metaphor. It's taking the low level consciousness, let's call the socialized mind, many things we've talked about here today, all the programs I've been programmed into, and to transmute them into gold, the golden consciousness, what we could call the divine Christ essence. We could call the Buddha consciousness. We can call it the higher self. We can call
love.
Yes, I mean, it's transmuting it into something of a higher order. And that's what alchemy really means, taking something of low value and transferring it into something of high value. So if you listen to our podcast, we're not talking about, test tubes and mixing eye of a newt and claw of an eagle. We're talking about very practical things like clean up your diet. And here's the kind of things that you've been lied to that you need to eradicate from your diet. We're talking about, studying fundamental truths, have a relationship with the organizing principle, I call it in God, Money, and Sex. This organizing principle, which obviously is God, that we've gotten so far away from. People need a hierarchy. That's a fact. Every sentient being, even a wolf pack, has a hierarchy, needs a hierarchy. They need a leader. Now, that can be used for dark purposes, it can be used for light purposes. And yet, if it's used for light purposes, that hierarchy, the top of the food chain is God. And when we disconnected from that, then all we have to know what's right and what's virtuous and what's principled is to look around us at what other people are doing. And we say, okay, well, it's okay to lie, because people are lying to Congress and they're not getting prosecuted. People lied in my trial, they didn't get prosecuted. So it's okay to lie. No, it's not okay.
Yeah.
It's not okay. That's part of a secularism that has gone away from God. The green new scam, that's that's trying to play God. It's not our job to play God with Earth. It's God's job. So let God do His job. It doesn't mean that we aren't great stewards of Earth. Of course we are, but nonetheless, we've got to get back to those kind of things. And that's what we talk about and much, much more in our podcast.
I like
Where
it.
can people find the podcast? Where can they find the book? We'll put it all in the show notes, of course, but what we find is a lot of people just can't be bothered to go to the show notes. So we always encourage our guests to get those URLs out here where they can hear them and take it from there.
Why don't we give them the Freedom Blueprint?
Sure, you can go to Harmonic Wealth Global forward slash
.com.
What did I say?
Harmonic Wealth Global.
Yeah.
My bad.
Yeah.
HarmonicWealthGlobal.com / freedom. Then you could get our get a free download, and it's a blueprint for asking yourself some questions and diving deep into what you're going through right now. And you can also purchase the book there too. And you can find us on HarmonicWealthGlobal.com.
Awesome.
Do you guys have any social media, anything like that?
We do.
We do. You can find us on Instagram. I believe it's James Arthur and Bear Ray. And James' Twitter account is at James A. Ray.
And yours is?
No idea.
I think yours is at Bersabeh Ray.
Yeah.
I'll check it out. I just got back on Twitter like yesterday, so I'm looking for follows. Yeah, it was a 2-year ban. So,
well, congratulations on coming
welcome back.
Yeah,
we had 3 Facebook accounts shut down and 3 Instagram accounts shut down.
Yeah,
so we feel your pain. But we're back up and running. We used to have big followings, and now we started over from scratch 3 times.
Yeah, it's hard. It really does make a difference. I mean, Darren had, it wasn't huge, but it was like 40,000. I mean, that was enough to help us with some reach. And it's just, man, it's been one thing after another. But
yeah,
it's the first one we won in a while. It's been just like, because you know how it is with these tech companies. You mean there's just not even an avenue to state your claim.
Yeah, no, there isn't.
Well, I gotta say this, and I know we're trying to roll up here, but I'm sure you guys saw that Mr. Zuckerberg came out and admitted yesterday that the Biden-Harris administration and the FBI pressured him heavily to censor Facebook and Instagram on not only all the election issues, but on COVID and on the Hunter Biden laptop. He admitted it. So
what do you think that reason is that he's doing that now, just in case Trump? Does he think Trump's going to win, or is he trying to make it seem like Trump better not do that to me now because I came out and said that the other people are like? I kind of had that thought that maybe he's protecting himself or saying that he's protecting himself against the Trump regime too. But
I think he's trying to get ahead of the curve. That's my impulse. I mean, the other angle would be that his conscience got the best of him. He felt so guilty. He had to come out and admit it. But I think it's probably more that he's trying to get ahead of the curve and hope for some kind of easy go because he did that. But nonetheless, that was a conspiracy theory too, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And now it's admission. And by the way, he lied in Congress about that when they asked him about it originally. So I think there's some crime going on there.
But like you said, nothing happens to the liars. I mean, that's the one thing that's so frustrating for me right now is that the Canadian government, everybody just seems to be okay with lying, and and you're trying to. Here we are trying to live honest lives, and it's just like, so they can just do whatever they want and nothing ever happens. It's crazy.
Well,
not for long.
Justice is always served.
That's right.
That's a fundamental law in this universe. Justice is always served. Sometimes and most often it just takes longer than we would like.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right. It's sometimes I worry that Rand just nailed it though. It's just once a society gets to where we are, where the crooks and the thieves and the looters, they are protected and they can do whatever they want right in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
And if we say something about it, they'll fucking throw you in jail. I mean, not here. We're not there yet here, but I mean, look at what's happening in the UK right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're throwing people in jail for saying what's happening.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
On social media.
Yeah.
Yeah. On the internet.
Yeah, that's a heinous crime to put something on social media. So anyway, The good news is sometimes you have to go through hell to get to heaven, and when you're going through hell, you just keep going. You just got to keep going, and you got to hold your head high, and you got to have faith, true faith, that there's a bigger power that's working that we can't necessarily see, but eventually it's going to win out.
Yeah.
Let's hope so.
That's a good note to end on. It reminds me of my favorite Finding Nemo quote. Just I quote it all the time. It's just keep swimming. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it doesn't matter what the fuck's going on. You just gotta keep swimming. I mean, there's
right.
no other option.
That's right. That's right.
James Bersabeh, this has been great. Thank you guys for coming on the show, for taking some time on your Thursday night. It was a bit short notice too, so big thanks for coming on. We encourage everyone to check out your work, check it out, and yeah, we'll have to do this again down the road. This was fun.
Yeah.
It's always
Yeah.
fun to meet another censor victim.
Yeah. Thanks for pushing back so much. I just signed up to your Freedom Blueprint. So,
Oh, great,
yeah.
great. Well, God bless you guys. Keep doing the great work,
Yeah.
and thanks
Yeah.
for having us. We
yeah,
appreciate it.
thanks a lot.
Okay.
Thank
All right,
you.
guys. Have a great night.
Bye bye.
And that was our chat with James, Arthur, and Bersabeh. We should have did Outlawed.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Yeah,
It ended up being that long too, and everything. You know
well,
what?
I didn't want to stop at an hour because I felt like they had more to say, and I just really appreciate like the journey from like, man, I just remember the secret so much, and I remember that whole thing happening with the sweat lodges. I remember you and I talking about that quite a few times, and
On this show. That's the other
yeah.
things I think we talked about on this show like a decade ago. So
yeah, like wow, I know it just yeah. Because I was doing that quite a bit there, and I was pretty pissed that was being used.
I can't remember how our take was. I think I don't remember. The one I remember us talking about on the show it seemed a lot more sketchy than they had set up.
What?
Weren't we talking on another one on the show that seemed like it was like, because I feel like James's would have been pretty high class. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you had a doctor there for the one. I remember talking about one on the show that seemed like a total shit show because I was like, why would you go in that sweat lodge? I mean,
Yeah.
it's like the George Bluth fucking sweat lodge.
Well, that was probably mine. I mean, that was probably the one I was doing. We were
That
making
might
it
have been
from
the one.
scratch.
That might have been the one. Big thanks.
Remember, we were going to go down. We never did get to go down there. So
We should do a sweat lodge cat.
yeah, that would be good.
I should learn how to do it.
Yeah.
It's
It's pretty easy to make. Just a lot of blankets, a lot of like a big sort of teepee type thing, and a big hole in the
order
middle.
headdress
hot
off
rocks.
Amazon.
Some hot rocks. Did you?
No,
Oh, yeah, you should. Yeah.
I told you I'm not buying a headdress. I am going when I get my headdress. It will be given to me in ceremony like it's supposed to be. I don't know when that's going to happen or if it's going to happen, but I feel like I could pull it off yet. I've still got time left. I could maybe get a ceremonial headdress from someone that I'm putting in the work. So
Oh,
can't
yeah,
rule
that's
it
good.
out.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
But you can't just buy a headdress. That's like,
No,
not if you're an Indian.
No.
It's like
no.
custom shoes.
Amazon.
Yeah.
Amazon delivers your address.
Anyway, big thanks to James and Bersabeh for coming on the show. Big thanks to you guys for listening. Even bigger thanks if you're one of the few who chooses to support our work here. You know, we just did the whole value for value speech from Atlas Shrugged over on Outlawed Roundup last night, but I'm not going to do it again here. It was a good 10 minutes solid, but it was funny because going into that, dude, I didn't know that was the value for value speech. I didn't. I don't know why, because I didn't pick up on it listening to it.
Oh, okay.
And then when I came back, and because that's not why I picked it. I just picked it completely because of just the take on money. Because it's like it gives you just sort of a different view on money. It's like, well, that is a good point. I mean, we've corrupted the shit out of the money, but if we didn't have that, it'd be a real mess.
And it's not the money's fault. It's been corrupted.
It's not the money's fault that we corrupted. But yeah, and then of course the value for value thing comes up right in there. That's 100% where he got it from.
Yeah.
Anyway, check out the book, Atlas Shrugged. I seen a bunch of people in the chats today said they're going to read it again. So, I mean, at least I can feel responsible for getting a bunch of people to read Atlas Shrugged, if nothing else.
Exactly.
So support us, grimerica.ca/support. If you're getting some of that value I was just talking about from this show that we're throwing out into the world for you guys, and you want to send some value back our way, let us know that you're listening, you're out there, you care. grimerica.ca/support. Sign up for a monthly, make a one-time donation, become a lord or a lady. That'd be even cooler. I think that's about it, guys. We love you. Oh, check out grimericaoutlaw.ca for other podcasts. If you want to check that whole speech out, it's at the end of the roundup episode from Wednesday, August 28th. Got a bunch of other great stuff on Outlaw, of course, as well over there. Contact at the cabin for the trips. You might be able to sneak in on the Randall one. Definitely sneak in on Infomere if you're quick. And adultbrain.ca for the audiobooks. Spam Graham at grimerica.com. Other than that, we love you guys. Thanks for listening. And we will see you next week.
Your mind's on fire, all the color red in a blue lagoon. In a storm in Bermuda, you've dive bombed into a seashell swoon. Maybe your easiest dreams make sweet perfume. While you're yawning, yet not breathing in a hospital room. Should I call for help? We are drowning in this ocean swell. Let's start from scratch, quit living these lies, and become unattached. The idea of some far-off future is the fuel for your worries. But for God's sakes, time is eternal. Please do not hurry. Please do not fret. Please act now in a way that doesn't lead to regret. Please stop smoking so many cigarettes so profusely.